This little girl's name is Miran. As soon as she got home, she threw her shoes on the ground and told her older sister Duran to wash them. Because of her poor health, her mother did not let Miran touch cold water. However, Miran's arrogant attitude made Duran angry. Duran grabbed Miran's hair and said that whoever's clothes should wash them themselves. During the conflict, Duran accidentally pushed Miran into the basin of water, so the two of them grabbed each other's hair, refusing to give in to the other. At this time, their mother came home from the market and saw this scene. The mother did not care who was wrong. She rushed over and pushed Duran to the ground, then gently caressed and asked Miran if he were okay. Seeing this, Miran immediately blamed Duran. After hearing this, the mother got mad, dragged Duran out and beat her up, and said that I would kick you out of the house. Duran did not understand why her mother always treated her so cruelly. Was she not a biological child? Unexpectedly, the mother did not deny it, but took advantage of her anger to tell the truth. Duran's mother told her that I picked you up from under a bridge. After saying that, the mother immediately chased Duran out of the house. Poor Duran went outside sadly to the train station to wait for her father to come home. In this family, her father was the only one who loved her. Duran waited until it was dark before seeing her father getting off the bus. Dongchul asked Duran why she was here alone, but she innocently asked her father if she was picked up from under a bridge. Dongchul comforted Duran that those were just her mother's angry words. The reason Duran's mother favored Miran more was because Miran was born prematurely at only 7 months. Miran's health was weak, so mother cared for Miran little more. Hearing that, Duran happily accepted this reason, but Duran didn't know that she was actually not the biological child of this family. In the past, Dongchul carried Duran home while his wife was pregnant with Miran. Dongchul told his wife that from today on they would have to take responsibility for raising this child. The wife refused and insisted that her husband chase the child away. Dongchul saw this and begged miserably that the child's parents were his saviors, so no matter what, he had to take responsibility for raising the child. The wife had no choice but to helplessly compromise, but in her heart, she did not want to see the child. Because she was not satisfied, she cruelly squeezed the child's legs. Unexpectedly, this caused her to give birth to Miran 7 months prematurely. That night, when Dongchul returned home, he warned his wife that if she continued to say that Duran was not their biological child, they would end things completely. His wife, Yangja, was very confused. What kind of child was Duran that could make Dongchul careless and ask for a divorce? Yangja suspected that Duran was Dongchul's illegitimate child outside, so the next day, she went to the forensic agency to do a DNA test. While Yangja was worrying, the results were out. Duran was not Dongchul's biological child. Yangja was very happy to receive this news. Luckily, Dongchul was not what she thought. So who is Duran's biological father? It turns out that Duran's biological father went to a loan shark to get money for his wife's medical treatment. Unexpectedly, the boss saw that Duran's biological father was too poor and didn't want to lend him money. Duran's biological father saw this and immediately held the boss's leg and begged. Unexpectedly, the boss accidentally lost his balance and fell to the ground and died on the spot. While running away, Duran's biological father accidentally stabbed another person to death. Therefore, Duran's biological father was sentenced to life in prison. Duran's biological mother didn't have money for treatment, so she also died. Kind-hearted Dongchul took young Duran to prison to visit her father. He promised to raise the child as his own. For Duran's future, Duran's biological father asked Dongchul not to tell anyone about her background because Duran's biological father had once done Dongchul a favor. Dongchul was unconditionally kind to the child. 28 years have passed. Duran is now a grown and beautiful girl. Knowing that her family was in trouble, she went to work part-time without telling her parents. But to Yangja, Duran was an illegitimate child who came from nowhere and kept depending on her family. For dinner, Yangja made delicious braised ribs. Miran said she was on a diet, so she didn't eat them, but Duran ate them very well. This made Yangja very unhappy. She thought to herself that even if she spent time making expensive beef ribs, what's the point? Today, Miran came home drunk. She didn't understand and complained about why she didn't have a rich family. Among Miran's friends, she was the only one who had never studied abroad. She didn't even have money to go to language school as she wanted. Seeing how much Miran wanted to study a foreign language, Duran decided to use her part-time job to send Miran to school. Yangja happily accepted the savings book, but she didn't sympathize with Duran's hardships and complained that the money was too little and then asked for more. Today, Dongchul and Yangja went to a wedding together, but on the way they met a woman named Su-rong. She was the former landlady of Duran's biological parents. Dongchul took Duran from Su-rong home. In order to not reveal Do-ran's identity, Dong-chul pretended not to know her, but Su-rom recognized Dong-chul. Su-rom approached to greet him, but Dong-chul said she had the wrong person. After saying that, he quickly pulled Young-ja away. Su-rom's appearance made him uneasy. One day, Dong-chul saw Su-rom again in the apartment building near where he lived. He suspected that she had moved nearby, because he was afraid that one day, Do-ran's identity would be revealed. When he returned home, Dong-chul discussed with Do-ran about her studying abroad. Dong-chul didn't need Do-ran to worry about money. Even if he had to sell the house, he would send her abroad. Unexpectedly, Yang-ja and Mi-ran, outside the door, heard it. Yang-ja angrily stormed into the room and questioned her husband that he couldn't bear to let his biological daughter study abroad. But now he wanted to sell the house to support an illegitimate child who didn't know where he came from. Do-ran found it hard to believe what Yang-ja said. Do-ran asked if she wasn't their child. Dong-chul still tried to explain, but Yang-ja firmly affirmed it. Do-ran ran outside in pain, remembering her mother's attitude towards her since she was little. Do-ran finally understood why. Do-ran heartbrokenly left home because she knew her identity. Dong-chul rode his motorbike everywhere to look for Do-ran. Unexpectedly, in the alley, he was hit by a car that rushed out and hit him. Do-ran received the news too late. She rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately Dong-chul was no longer alive. Yang-ja blamed everything on Do-ran. Yang-ja did not like Do-ran, and Yang-ja thought that it was because of Do-ran that her husband died. Yang-ja grabbed Do-ran's hair and chased her out of the house, saying that I don't want to see you anymore. Do-ran clung to the door and called mother, but Yang-ja never considered Do-ran as her daughter. Do-ran could only walk absent-mindedly on the street. At this time, a man on the bus noticed Do-ran. He quickly asked the driver to stop the bus. That man was Do-ran's biological father. He was imprisoned for manslaughter. He was recently released on parole. Looking at his daughter's sad back, Young-hoon wanted to go and comfort her, but he could not move. He had no right or qualifications, and he couldn't let Do-ran be known as the daughter of a murderer. Do-ran calmed down, bought Yang-ja's favorite dumplings, and returned to the front door. Mi-ran went everywhere looking for Do-ran. Seeing Do-ran in front of the house, Mi-ran happily pulled her home. Meanwhile, Yang-ja in the yard threw all of Do-ran's belongings out and insisted on chasing Do-ran away. Do-ran miserably begged for forgiveness and said that she would try to earn money to support mother in the future. Until now, Do-ran still doesn't want to believe that she is not her father's biological child. Yang-ja saw this and immediately brought out the DNA test report from that year. Seeing the report, Do-ran wondered who she really was. Do-ran painfully dragged her suitcase out of the house. For the past 28 years, Dong-chul was Do-ran's only support in this family. Now that Dong-chul was gone, everything seemed meaningless to Do-ran. The next day, Do-ran asked her friends to help her rent a room. Do-ran gave up her dream of entering the judicial school and started working hard to save money. On the other side, Do-ran's biological father, Young-hoon, had just been released from prison and changed his name to Su-il. Thanks to the priest's help, Su-il went to work at an orphanage. Seeing that Su-il was hardworking and honest, the priest wanted to introduce him to a job as a driver for a chaebol who had donated to the orphanage. After being introduced by the priest, Su-il went to the tycoon's house. Gumbyung saw that Su-il was respectful and was quite satisfied with him. After meeting the chaebol's family, Su-il stayed at their house. Yang-ja chased Do-ran away, looking very comfortable. Yang-ja and Mi-ran went out to eat barbecue. Yang-ja sold Dong-chul's house and shop and planned to buy a small apartment in Gangnam and open a coffee shop. Yang-ja hoped that Mi-ran could find a good husband's family there. Do-ran worked hard and received a salary from the vegetable stall owner, but she had no one to share her happiness with. Thinking of the happy and harmonious family of four, Do-ran brought Mi-ran's favorite tangerines to the front door, but Yang-ja threw them to the ground. Yang-ja no longer wanted to accept Do-ran as her daughter. Do-ran did not think it was right. Even though they were not relatives, they had lived as a family for 28 years. Could it be that Yang-ja had no feelings for her? Do-ran gave Yang-ja the money she earned from her part-time work and promised to support Yang-ja, but Yang-ja accidentally threw the money to the ground. Yang-ja said that even if Do-ran gave her a few thousand billion, she would not need it. Yang-ja just wanted Do-ran to disappear. The next morning, a young chaebol came to the company early in a very good mood, but he was gossiped about behind his back by his employees. He was confused and did not understand what was happening. When he arrived at the office, he found out that his bad photos had been spread online. Only then did he discover that the USB containing his private photos was missing. He called the maid to ask if she had seen it in his suit, but the maid said she had confirmed many times that it was not there. He remembered that yesterday on the street he had bumped into a rash girl who had a bad experience with him. He thought she had picked up the USB and was taking revenge on him, so he drove to the hotel hotel where the girl worked part-time to find her, but the receptionist said that the hotel did not have this person. He asked the secretary to call the police to catch the girl. Right at that moment, he discovered that she was handing out flyers on the street. It was truly a waste of effort. This guy was Dae-ryuk. He stepped on Do-ran's flyer and grabbed her hand, forcing her to hand over the USB. Do-ran was completely bewildered, wondering who this was, but she quickly realized that it was the pervert who had seduced the rich young lady in the hotel last time. Do-ran did not know which USB Dae-ryuk was talking about. Dae-ryuk said that the day they collided, his USB definitely fell out of his pocket and was picked up by her. Do-ran thought he was deliberately causing trouble, so she didn't pay attention. Do-ran turned around to leave, but Dae-ryuk reached out to stop her. Unexpectedly, he accidentally touched her chest. She glared at him. This further proved that he was a pervert. Dae-ryuk said sorry and ran away. When he got in the car, he wondered why he put his hand there. Then he thought again, maybe it wasn't her, but then he dismissed his meaningless argument. At this time, Dae-ryuk received a phone call informing him that the person who uploaded the photo had been found. It turned out that the maid's son was happy and uploaded the photo. Seeing that the child was still young, Dae-ryuk didn't bother to pursue the matter. Then he looked at the USB and felt extremely uncomfortable. Suddenly, he remembered that he accidentally molested Do-ran during the heat day. This made him very embarrassed and wished he would never see her again. But fate is amazing. Do-ran decided to go to the famous bomb and food company to apply. Meanwhile, Dae-ryuk's father is the president of this company. Do-ran went to the interview because of a stomachache, so she hurriedly ran to the men's restroom. When she went out, Do-ran met Dae-ryuk again. Dae-ryuk saw a woman coming out and thought he had gone to the wrong place, so he quickly bowed his head to apologize and was about to leave. Do-ran recognized Dae-ryuk and thought to herself that this pervert was everywhere, so she rushed to hit him. Suddenly, a job applicant came and said that this was the men's restroom. Only then did Do-ran realize that she had gone to the wrong place. After apologizing, she hurriedly ran away. At this time, Dae-ryuk was mercilessly laughed at by the job applicant. As the CEO of such a big company, he couldn't even say, "This is the men's restroom." Returning to his room, he was extremely angry at being humiliated right in his own company. Suddenly, Dae-ryuk remembered the interview card on Do-ran's chest. He thought she was a candidate who came to the company for an interview, so he immediately called his secretary to bring the resume of the applicant today. Sure enough, he found Do-ran's resume. This made Dae-ryuk feel very pleased. Very quickly, Do-ran received a text message that she had passed the interview and had successfully advanced to the next round. Seeing the text message that she had passed, she was extremely happy, but Do-ran didn't know that there was someone secretly waiting for her to come. Dae-ryuk sat in his room, wondering how ugly Do-ran's expression would be when she saw him in the interview tomorrow. He even imagined the prospect of his authority at that time. On this side, Do-ran's biological father was working as a driver for a wealthy family. That day, Sewell went to the market with his maid to buy things. When he turned the corner, he bumped into a girl pushing a cart of frozen goods. He looked up and saw that it was his daughter, whom he had not seen for 28 years. Because of his criminal record, Sewell did not dare to say that he was Do-ran's father. Seeing Do-ran being scolded by the boss, Sewell felt both pity and heartache. He was lost in thought, not paying attention to anything around him. Years ago, Dong-chul had promised to raise his daughter well and would not let her work so hard at the market. He suspected that something had happened to Dong-chul, so the next day, Soo-il took the opportunity to go to the store where Dong-chul used to run, but he found the store closed. Passers-by said that the store owner had died. Hearing this, Soo-il was very surprised. Passers-by said that he had died in a traffic accident a long time ago, and the funeral was over. Soo-il could not believe it, so he frantically smashed the store and called out his good friend's name. It was not until Soo-il came to Dong-chul's portrait that he dared to accept this truth. To repay Dong-chul's kindness, Soo-il decided to secretly help Dong-chul's family, so he went to the bank and withdrew all the savings in the book, then quietly put it in the mailbox in front of Dong-chul's house, hoping to reduce the burden on their family. But he did not know that his daughter had been kicked out of the house by Yang Ja. Yang Ja counted the money of unknown origin over and over again and found that it totaled more than 4 million won. Yang Ja thought that this was the money that Dong-chul had lent to someone else before he died, so she happily accepted it. That day, Soo-il went to the fruit store to buy fruit for the Chaebol's family, and he also bought a box of oranges and grapes for Dong-chul's family. He saw Yang Ja and Mi-ran laughing and talking happily when they returned home, but he did not see Do-ran anywhere. Mi-ran saw oranges and grapes in front of the door and instinctively said that these were the fruit of Do-ran's favorite things, but Yang Ja immediately spoke up to stop her daughter from mentioning Mi-ran. Soo-il wondered why Yang Ja said that, so he asked the neighbors passing by. Unexpectedly, he heard that his daughter had been kicked out of the house by Yang Ja. Soo-il was in turmoil. He went to the market where he met Do-ran that day to look for his daughter. When he asked the vegetable stall owner, he knew that Do-ran had quit her job, and the owner did not have her contact information. Soo-il did not know where Do-ran would go when she was alone. He did not know if his daughter was okay. Meanwhile, Yanja and Mi-ran were at home comfortably enjoying the fruit that was sent. They thought it was sent by the person who sent the money last time. The two did not know how much money they owed and why did they do that. So the two decided to install a camera at the entrance to catch this debtor. Duran accidentally helped an elderly woman with memory loss. Unexpectedly, it was the mother of the president of the company she was going to apply for a job. That day, Duran was on her way to Bam and Food for an interview. At this time, Gumbyung approached Doran and pulled her back, continuously calling Doran was sister. Gumbyung claimed to be Doran's older sister and held her back. Duran was in a hurry to go to the interview, so she panicked. After calling the police, Gumbyung found out that the woman had amnesia. The police held Gumbyung back so Doran could leave. At this time, Daryok was waiting for her to arrive. He wanted to show off to the woman who had mistaken him for a gigolo, but he waited and waited but still didn't see her. The interviewer had finished the interview. Daryok didn't know that Doran was being held back by his grandmother. Not seeing Doran, Daryok was a bit disappointed. He thought she had gone to another company, so he was very angry. This time, Duran arrived late and was told that the interview had ended. She went home disappointed and sad, but found her phone was gone. She thought she had lost it when she was arguing with Gumbyung, so Duran went to the police station. Gumbyung still hadn't found her family and was crying and demanding to go with Doran. Seeing how pitiful Gumbyung was, Duran decided to take her home to take care of her. If she found Gumbyung's family, Duran would call the police to come to her house to pick up Gumbyung. Doran changed Gumbyung's t-shirt and cooked bibimbap. Gumbyung told her about how she and her younger sister had depended on each other in the past. Doran thought she had gone through a lot of hardships, but in fact, she was the mother of the boss of a conglomerate, Jin-guk. The police finally called Gumbyung's family to come to Doran's house to pick up Gumbyung. The next day, Secretary Yang brought a gift to the police station and asked the police to deliver it to Doran. The police also told Secretary Yang that Doran had missed her interview in food company because of Gumbyung. After knowing about this, Jin-guk asked Secretary Yang to get Doran's file. He found out that she was a very excellent candidate. Her written and interview scores were very high, and he almost missed out on a capable and kind employee. So he met Doran and appointed her as his secretary. Doran was so happy that she danced all the way. The next day, Doran was very excited at work but encountered an unexpected incident. Doran was walking to Jin-guk's room when she accidentally met Daryok. The two looked at each other in surprise. Then Doran asked Daryok what he was doing here. Daryok said that he should be the one asking her that question. Hearing that, Doran showed Daryok her employee card and said that she was the secretary here. Daryok also showed his employee card. Doran found it hard to believe that this gigolo was the general director of the company. Daryok questioned the secretary Yang, who had assigned the job to Doran without an interview. The secretary Yang said it was the president. Coincidentally, Jin-guk was also passing by at this time. Thanks to that, Daryok knew that Doran was the one who had helped his grandmother. He originally intended to teach Doran a lesson, but because of her, he couldn't make things tense. At this time, Doran was sitting in the corner because she had offended the president's son. She thought she would definitely be retaliated against or fired, but the best way to overcome fear is to face it. So Doran took the initiative to bring tea to Daryok. He deliberately said that she had hit his head that day, so he often had headaches and dizziness. Doran was very worried when she heard that. Daryok laughed, not expecting this girl to be so easy to fool. On this side, Soo-il was struggling to find his daughter, but there was no news. Unexpectedly, he met his daughter at the owner's house today. It turned out that Gumbyung's amnesia had relapsed today, so she looked for Doran again. Gumbyung had dementia and considered Doran as her lost sister. Her son and daughter-in-law came to pick her up, but Gumbyung cried and refused to go home. Doran had no choice but to stay by Gumbyung's side to take her home. Soo-il was able to meet his daughter again. To his surprise, he wondered why she appeared at the chaebol's house. From the maid, he knew that Doran was working as a secretary in the chaebol's company and that he had to take her home tonight. Soo-il drove his daughter, whom he did not dare to tell about their relationship. Tears welled up in his eyes. He thanked God for giving him this opportunity to be with his daughter. Seeing that his daughter was taking care of her life well by herself, he felt relieved. The next day, Gumbyung knew that she was sick and bothered Doran, so she invited Doran to her house for dinner. The task of picking up Doran was given to Soo-il. He bought his daughter her favorite banana milk and waited for her downstairs of the company building early. Seeing Doran drinking the milk deliciously, Soo-il felt warm inside. Even a small bottle of milk was a father's heart for his daughter. He He even kept the empty bottle that she drank. While Suil was happy, he felt sad. The closer he was to Do-ran, the sooner the secret would be discovered. For the sake of his daughter's future, Suil decided to leave. He wanted to ask Gyeong-byung to resign, but she wanted him to give Do-ran a gift. Suil decided to meet Do-ran one last time and then leave. To thank the uncle who often picked her up, Do-ran also prepared a small gift for him. He suggested Do-ran have a bowl of noodles. They went to the noodle shop. Do-ran couldn't help but mention her father. Before, whenever she was sad, her father would take her to eat a bowl of noodles, but he was no longer in this world. He was her only protector in this world. The feeling of losing the person who loved her the most made Do-ran extremely miserable. Seeing his daughter sadly eating noodles, Suil felt very uncomfortable. At this moment, his heart wavered. He wanted to continue being her protector. Before Do-ran met someone who could truly protect her, he still needed to protect her. Even though the weather wasn't that cold yet, he put the scarf Do-ran gave him around his neck. Then he went to Do-ran's rented house to check if the window was closed tightly. He found that the window railing was loose, so he quickly bought screws to fix and reinforce it. At this time, Do-ran came home from work, so he had to hide in the corner of the wall and silently observe her. The next day, Do-ran went to the pharmacy to buy medicine for Dae-ryuk because he said he had a headache and was dizzy after she hit him last time. She also wanted to take him to the hospital for a brain scan. Dae-ryuk couldn't help but laugh. He couldn't imagine that this thoughtful girl was the one who hit him. Gyeong-byung, in order to thank Do-ran for taking care of her, called Do-ran out and said that I would help you fulfill your dream. But Do-ran couldn't accept Gyeong-byung's good intentions. Gyeong-byung had no choice but to take Do-ran to the mall and shop for her. But suddenly Jung-byung's amnesia returned. Jung-byung wanted to go to the amusement park with Do-ran. Jin-gup knew, so he was worried about Jung-byung's safety, so he told Dae-ryuk to follow them. Unexpectedly, Jung-byung didn't recognize her nephew and mistook him for a neighbor. Do-ran had no choice but to suggest going out with Dae-ryuk. Jung-byung happily agreed. Do-ran and Jung-byung ate cotton candy, bought ice cream, and played the electric car happily. When they heard that Jung-byung had returned home, the daughter-in-law and granddaughter-in-law quickly escaped to the second floor. Jung-byung took Do-ran to her room, then took out her precious box and let Do-ran choose what Do-ran liked. Then Jung-byung gave Do-ran a precious diamond necklace. Before that, Jung-byung couldn't bear to give it to her daughter-in-law. When Gyeong-byung's daughter-in-law was Eun-yum heard about it, she told Jin-gup to go to her room to get the precious box, but he said to let mother be happy. Jung-byung's granddaughter-in-law, Dae-ya, was unhappy because Gyeong-byung couldn't bear to give it to her before, but now Gyeong-byung gave it to an outsider. Do-ran was not unreasonable. While Jung-byung was sleeping, Do-ran quickly returned the necklace to Eun-yum. That night, when Soo-il looked at the photos, he found that Dae-ryuk's eyes were always on Do-ran. The next day, when Jung-byung cleaned out the jewelry box, she discovered that her most precious necklace had disappeared. It seemed that she was gradually forgetting everything around her. Eun-young thought that her mother-in-law's things would be hers anyway, so she didn't return the necklace. She then wore the necklace to show off to her friends. Dae-ryuk discovered that he was gradually liking Do-ran more, so he ended the relationship with the blind date. Eun-young was very surprised when she found out because the blind date was the daughter of the president of a pharmaceutical manufacturing corporation. It was clear that Dae-ryuk had agreed to find a proper match before, but now he said he didn't want to meet anymore. Dae-ryuk expressed his opinion that he now wanted to marry the person he truly loved. That day, after the party ended, Dae-ryuk wanted to take Do-ran home, but she insisted on taking the subway herself. Unexpectedly, Dae-ryuk secretly followed Do-ran onto the train. However, their houses were not in the same direction. Do-ran told Dae-ryuk that he took the wrong train. He should go the opposite direction, but Dae-ryuk told him that this way was fine. He would get home anyway. Do-ran thought that he had drunk too much and lost control of his behavior, but Dae-ryuk still insisted that he was not drunk. On this side, Dae-ya still remembered the story of Gyeong-byung giving Do-ran a necklace. When facing Do-ran, Dae-ya used her identity as the hostess to ask Do-ran to make coffee for her. At that moment, Soo-il entered and told Do-ran that she did not need to make coffee because she was not a maid but Gyeong-byung's honored guest. Dae-ya was extremely upset that a maid dared to order her around. She turned to Soo-il and said that he was just a paid driver in this house, so why did he interfere in her story? She asked him to leave the house immediately. Do-ran saw Soo-il being scolded because of her, so she asked Dae-ya to apologize to Soo-il immediately. Just waiting for that, Dae-ya immediately turned around and scolded Do-ran mercilessly. At this time, Jin-guk and Gyeong-byung had just returned home. They had heard everything Dae-ya said. Jin-guk was extremely angry. Even people in his position had never treated servants like that. Jin-guk was very disappointed in Dae-ya. Being scolded by father made Dae-ya very angry because Dae-ya's mother was Eun-young's friend. Eun-young tried to protect Dae-ya to keep Dae-ya from being sad. Eun-young gave her Gyeong-byung's diamond diamond necklace, but they didn't know that when Gyeongbyung got sick, she would remember her diamond necklace. Junbyung went straight to Daya's room and rummaged through everything. Junbyung opened the wardrobe and saw Daya hiding inside. Gunbyung angrily questioned Daya about how you dared to steal my necklace. Daya was scared and quickly returned it. Jungkook asked Daya why the necklace was with her. Eunyoung quickly explained that she was the one who gave the necklace to Daya. Hearing this, Jungkook was also helpless about these two people. Everyone left, leaving Daya alone, crying. She called her biological mother to complain that she had lost all face in front of Doran. Daya told her biological mother to think of a way to chase Doran away. So Hong-soo went to Eunyoung to suggest finding a professional nurse to take care of Gunbyung. It was not good to depend on Doran forever. Eunyoung also thought it made sense. So very quickly, Hong-soo found someone who claimed to be the top nurse in the country. Eunyoung introduced Gunbyung's situation to her. She was confident that she could handle the situation well. While they were talking, Gunbyung's dementia relapsed. Gunbyung grabbed the hair and attacked the people in front of her. Hong-soo was also not lucky enough to escape. The nurse asked them to move aside. She would calm Gunbyung herself. She was not lying. After a while, Gunbyung obediently fell asleep quietly. No one knew that the secret to Gunbyung's silence was sedatives, so Gunbyung quickly fell ill again. Not seeing Doran, Gunbyung refused to listen to the nurse. Junbyung spilled the entire pack of medicine the nurse brought. Jungkook returned home and saw his mother making a scene, but he still didn't understand what was going on. Gunbyung was sick, so she called Jungkook dad and exposed the nurse's crimes. The nurse saw that everything was exposed and quickly ran away. Everyone contacted Doran, but no one answered. It turned out that last night, Eunyoung told Doran not to come to the house to take care of Gunbyung anymore. Eunyoung also used money to humiliate Doran. Jungkook had no choice but to call the doctor to inject sedatives. The doctor looked at the blister pack of pills she had taken and saw that it was a sedative. Without a prescription, you can't use it indiscriminately, otherwise it will cause big problems. Jungkook looked at his wife and daughter-in-law in surprise. The two of them were also afraid and didn't dare to look straight at Jungkook. After sending the doctor away, Jungkook angrily asked them to convince Doran to come back, otherwise they couldn't enter this house again. So the next day, they went to Duran's house but were refused. First, Duran felt that she was not as good as a professional. Second, she wanted to keep her distance from Daeryuk. After all, their statuses were different, so there would be no results between the two. Daya wanted to use money to solve everything. Daya said, Doran, that I would pay you a little more for your salary. This hurt Doran's pride. Doran didn't want to say anything more, so she refused Eunyoung and went into the house. Eunyoung angrily turned to blame Daya for not doing anything but destroying things. Eunyoung had no choice but to blame Doran. The intention was to let Jungkook see Doran being arrogant and not wanting to come to the house anymore. Jungkook wondered how a kind person like Doran could behave like that, so Eunyoung must have done something. So Jungkook told Eunyoung that if she couldn't bring Doran back, she didn't think about entering this house anymore. So Eunyoung had to continue looking for Doran to convince her. Doran didn't want Eunyoung to bother her, so she went to the park. At this time, Doran received a call from Jungkook, but as soon as she picked up the phone, Junbyung asked her where she was going. Could it be that Doran didn't care about her anymore? Doran was a little shaken when she heard that. Because they had been in contact many times, Doran considered Gunbyung as his relative, so Doran immediately went to Jungkook's house. On this side, Daeryuk confessed to a girl and was accidentally seen by Soo-il. He began to pay attention to this guy. Apparently, he had recently been seen dating other women. Not long ago, he came to bother Doran. Soo-il thought that Daeryuk was a playboy who just wanted to play with his daughter. Daeryuk saw that Soo-il and Doran were close, so he wanted Soo-il to say good things about him to her. Soo-il agreed, but then he advised Doran not to be easily moved by a rich man like Daeryuk. In the end, she would be the one to suffer. Soo-il did not want her daughter to be hurt. Doran did not know that the person in front of her was her biological father, so she naively agreed to his request. Daeryuk had already started to pursue Doran intensely. Every day, he took her to the bus stop and found excuses to go out with her to do market research. When they went out to eat, he kept complimenting her on her beauty. When Doran heard these words, she thought Daeryuk was joking. She said she didn't like him, but when she didn't see him at the bus stop, she unconsciously looked around. Daeryuk suddenly appeared and was very happy to see Doran looking for him. Doran was embarrassed and didn't admit it, but Daeryuk teased her. That day, Gunbyung fell ill, so she called Doran to go on a picnic. The group went to the park. The scene was so harmonious and warm that it looked like a real family. At this moment, a gust of wind blew Gunbyung's hat away. Gunbyung wanted to pick it up but accidentally slipped and almost rolled down the slope. In the emergency, Doran pushed Gunbyung to the shore while she rolled down. Doran's neck hit the tree trunk hard, causing her to faint. Daeryuk was extremely really worried and quickly carried Do-ran to the hospital. When he got there, he still held her hand tightly and wouldn't let go. Seeing that Do-ran was still not waking up, he couldn't help but cry. Luckily, there was nothing serious, so Do-ran woke up after a while. She only sprained her ankle. Sewell witnessed Dae-ryok's worries about Do-ran, so on the way back, Sewell started to speak well of him. Sewell saw Dae-ryok's sincerity, so he decided to matchmake the two. He deliberately said he had something to do, so Dae-ryok could pick up and drop off Do-ran. She also gradually discovered something unusual. It was clear that Sewell had advised her to keep her distance from Dae-ryok before, but now he did like this. Sewell said that Dae-ryok truly loved her. Life only comes once. He hoped she could live happily with the person she loved. Then they both started to criticize each other for revealing flaws. It turned out that they didn't agree on their statements. It was clear that they had discussed saying that Sewell had diarrhea, but Dae-ryok said he had a cold. When they returned, Sewell said he had something to do and had to leave. Do-ran thought he was leaving her and Dae-ryok alone, but this time Sewell really had something to do. On the way back, Dae-ryok tried his best to flirt with Do-ran. She also expressed her worries that the difference in status would prevent them from being together. She also did not want to be ridiculed by outsiders for being greedy for wealth, but Dae-ryok said that he had thought about all of that, but he asked her to believe him once. He would live happily with her for the rest of their lives. Before Dae-ryok's sincere confession, Do-ran no longer avoided him. The two gave each other the most passionate kiss. Gumban on this side also loved Do-ran more and more. She generously ordered 2 diamond necklaces to give to Do-ran. Each of them wore one like sisters. On the dining table, Eun-young discovered Do-ran's necklace and immediately showed an unhappy attitude. Daya was even more unhappy. She threw Gumbyung's tiny diamond necklace on the bed. She vented her anger on her husband because her status was not even as good as a secretary. So Daya went to the company to give flowers to Jin-guk to gain his trust. When she was about to leave, she accidentally met Do-ran. Daya acted like a boss and ordered Do-ran. Do-ran also called Daya madam. This scene was accidentally seen by Dae-ryok. Today, Dae-ryok asked Do-ran out and took out the ring he had prepared and put it on her himself. Dae-ryok firmly told Do-ran that he was serious, so he hoped she would live proudly and not let anyone bully her. Because she was his woman, she could hold her head high and face anyone. Dae-ryok suggested making their relationship public, but Do-ran was not mentally prepared. Do-ran wanted Dae-ryok to give her some more time. At this time, she received a call from Eun-young. Gumbyung got sick again and started looking for Do-ran. The two hurried home. When Gumbyung saw Do-ran, she stopped crying. Gumbyung even mistook her nephew for a neighbor. Do-ran saw that Gumbyung was not well, so she decided to stay here for a day. Dae-ryok upstairs started having trouble sleeping. His girlfriend was sleeping in his house, so he couldn't sleep, so he texted her to ask her out. They secretly went out to the yard to watch the stars. The scene was sweet and warm, and Daya accidentally saw this scene. This was a good opportunity to chase Do-ran away, so Daya quickly took out her phone to take a picture. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Gongbung rushed out, grabbed Daya's hair, and asked her what she was doing. Do-ran heard the noise and realized something was wrong, so she ran back. Unexpectedly, as soon as Do-ran entered, Jung-byung bragged that she had just scolded Daya for daring to peek at Do-ran and Dae-ryok on their date. Eun-young was very upset after hearing this. How could Gongbun say that her beloved son and a lowly secretary were in love? But Daya still told Eun-young this bad news. Eun-young firmly refused to believe that her son would not like Do-ran. Eun-young thought that Daya was making things up to chase Do-ran away. Eun-young told Daya not to be so cruel. If Daya couldn't stand Do-ran, she would live separately. Daya vowed to find evidence to chase Do-ran away. The next morning, to avoid gossip, Sewell offered to take Do-ran to work. He expressed his concern that if this secret love affair was discovered, the one who would be hurt would be Do-ran. Dae-ryok said that he had suggested making it public, but Do-ran was not ready yet. Dae-ryok asked Sewell to help him persuade Do-ran. On the way, Sewell probed Do-ran's attitude. She admitted that she really liked Dae-ryok, but because she liked him so much, she was afraid that this happiness would be broken. Knowing his daughter's thoughts, Sewell comforted her and gave her sincere advice. Those words gave Do-ran strength. She also made up her mind to go public with everything, so they decided to go home and announce it on the weekend so they could meet her parents properly. After work, he took her to the mall to shop, but they didn't know that someone with bad intentions had secretly taken pictures of their intimate gestures. It turned out that Daya was jealous of Do-ran being loved by Gumbyung. She wouldn't allow a lowly secretary to have the same power as her, so she gave the photos to Eun-young. Eun-young was extremely scared after seeing them. She could only get angry. Meanwhile, Daya began to manipulate Eun-young's psychology. Right now, Jin-guk and Gumbyung both liked Do-ran very much. Maybe they would agree to this marriage, so Eun-young had to completely destroy Dae-ryok and Do-ran's relationship before it was too late. Only then did Eun-young react. She thought she had had to act immediately. So Yin called Do-ran to meet and bluntly asked her to leave Daeryuk and quit her job at the company. If Do-ran married Daeryuk, the company's stock would plummet and all investments would be lost. Do-ran was already at a disadvantage in this relationship. Eun-young's words easily defeated Do-ran. The next morning, Daeryuk came to Do-ran's house very early, but he knew that she had gone to the company. When he arrived at the company, he couldn't find her anywhere. Only then did Daeryuk's father know that she had quit her job and stopped taking care of his grandmother. When Daeryuk found Do-ran, she heartlessly said goodbye. After breaking up, Do-ran never saw Daeryuk again. Helpless, Daeryuk contacted Soo-il for help. Soo-il made an appointment to meet Do-ran to ask why, but she remained silent and didn't say anything, just cried and avoided him. Soo-il guessed that Do-ran must have her own troubles. Jung-byung was very sad when she heard that she had quit her job, but Jung-byung had no choice but to respect her thoughts. Jin-guk had to find a new nurse. In order for the new nurse to pass the test, Eun-young and Daya planned to have her disguise herself as Do-ran. The new nurse arrived at the house with a very funny appearance. They were about to take her to see Geum-byung when Geum-byung suddenly fell ill. They tried to trick Geum-byung into thinking that the nurse in front of them was Do-ran, but Geum-byung still realized that it was not Do-ran, so she rushed forward and grabbed the new nurse's hair to attack the ba. As a result, the new nurse's wig was ripped off. This situation scared the new nurse and she ran away. Jin-guk was helpless and asked Eun-young to contact Do-ran. Eun-young picked up the phone but hesitated. She put the phone down and told him straight out that she couldn't contact Do-ran. They had no choice but to contact the doctor. After Geum-byung fell asleep, Jin-guk asked the doctor if there was a good way. The doctor frankly said that the best way was to keep the person she was obsessed with by her side. Otherwise, the situation would get worse and might even lead to doing something stupid. For the sake of his mother, Jin-guk decided to go and persuade Do-ran to return to work himself. Eun-young was heartbroken. Could it be that her eldest son, whom she had raised so hard, was ruined by this woman? She blamed everything on Geum-byung. Eun-young complained in front of Geum-byung that it was all because she was too dependent on Do-ran, that Daeryuk and Do-ran developed feelings. Even if she died, Eun-young would not accept Do-ran. Eun-young begged Geum-byung to come to her senses and not look for Do-ran anymore. Geum-byung felt very guilty when she saw Eun-young screaming madly. Geum-byung did not expect her illness to bring such a heavy burden to her daughter-in-law, so the next day, she chased everyone away and packed her bags to go to the nursing home alone. Luckily, Soo-il found out and followed her to the nursing home to convince her to return. Geum-byung asked Soo-il to keep the secret for her, so she told him the whole story. Because she was too dependent on Do-ran, Daeryuk and Do-ran liked each other, but it caused trouble for Eun-young. Geum-byung understood how much Eun-young expected of Daeryuk. Even if she died, Eun-young could not accept Do-ran. Only then did Soo-il know why Do-ran suddenly wanted to break up. Knowing the reason, he was extremely heartbroken. He did not know how much grievance his daughter had suffered. At this time, he received a call from Jin-guk. Jin-guk discovered that Geum-byung was missing. He asked Soo-il if he knew where his mother was. Although Soo-il had promised her to keep it a secret, Soo-il felt that Jin-guk should know, so he told Jin-guk the reason why she went to the nursing home. Jin-guk went to the nursing home and saw his mother sitting alone in the room, looking lonely, and he felt extremely ashamed. Jin-guk wanted to take his mother home, but she refused. If she stayed home for a day, her daughter-in-law and granddaughter-in-law would not have a single day of peace. After returning home, Jin-guk angrily told Eun-young to apologize to Geum-byung and take her home. Unexpectedly, Eun-young did not agree. If Geum-byung returned and kept having an attack, she would look for her sister. At that time, they would have to call Do-ran. Even if she died, Eun-young did not want Daeryuk to see Do-ran again. Unexpectedly, these words were heard by Daeryuk, who had just returned. Only then did he know why Do-ran suddenly broke up with him. He angrily questioned his mother why she did that. Do-ran was the person he loved. He would never marry anyone else but her. But Eun-young was still stubborn about her point of view. In the middle of the argument, Jin-guk received a call from Soo-il. Geum-byung at the nursing home had another attack, and the situation was not very good. Daeryuk said he would take Do-ran home, but Eun-young started to stop him. Daeryuk went to see Do-ran, hugged her, and blamed her for not telling him. He had clearly said he would handle it properly, but he left her to face it alone. On this side, Geum-byung had an attack and couldn't control her emotions. The nursing home's way of handling it was to lock her in her room. She screamed for Jin-guk to save her. At this moment, Daeryuk and Do-ran arrived. Geum-byung's emotions immediately calmed down as soon as she saw Do-ran, and she asked Do-ran to take her home. Eun-young and Daya felt very uncomfortable when they saw this scene. When Do-ran got home, she saw Geum-byung sleeping soundly. Do-ran didn't understand why Geum-byung was only looking for her. Now in this dilemma, how should she handle it? At this moment, Daeryuk walked in, held her hand, and decided that he would never let go. He firmly pulled Do-ran in front of his family and said that he would marry marry her, but they were still strongly opposed by Eun-young. If she didn't agree, Dae-ryuk would take Eun-byung out to live. Eun-young went crazy and scolded Do-ran with seriously insulting words, causing her to be hurt and run away. Jin-guk didn't object but didn't say anything either. As the eldest son in the family, Dae-ryuk shouldered the family's expectations. After a night of thinking, Jin-guk was no longer stubborn. He agreed to trust Dae-ryuk. Even if he didn't rely on marriage to strengthen his career, Dae-ryuk would still develop his career very well. Jin-guk called Do-ran to come back. He did not accept her resignation. When she went to Do-ran's company, she received Jin-guk's approval. He agreed to let the two of them be together. This was indeed not an easy decision for him, but Jin-guk had been very satisfied with Do-ran for a while. He thought everything would go smoothly. Do-ran's mother had raised Do-ran for 28 years, but she had never considered Do-ran as her daughter. When her husband died, she kicked Do-ran out of the house. When she squandered all her family's assets, she shamelessly came to find Do-ran. Yeonja not only lived with Do-ran, but also forced Do-ran to pay for Mi-ran's education. Now Do-ran and Dae-ryuk are in love, and Dae-ryuk's family finally agreed. But Yeonja went to Eun-young to ask for the money she had raised Do-ran for 28 years, otherwise she would not agree to let Do-ran get married. During the conversation, Eun-young also knew that Do-ran was adopted. This made Eun-young, who had already disagreed with this marriage, find a weak point. When she got home, Eun-young was extremely agitated and said that she would not agree to this marriage. Eun-young recounted the story of Yeonja asking for money to raise Do-ran. Not only that, she did not even know who Do-ran's biological parents were. How could their family accept someone of unknown status as a daughter-in-law? Soo-il was very angry when he heard this. He went to Yeonja to question why she did that. Even though Do-ran was not her biological daughter, she had raised Do-ra for more than 28 years. Could it be that she did not have any feelings? Yeonja refuted Soo-il that he and Do-ran were not relatives. Who was he to interfere in her affairs? Soo-il was so agitated that he almost told the truth. At this time, Do-ran returned and heard the conversation. She couldn't believe that her mother could do such a thing. She kept asking Yeonja, hoping to hear a negative answer. Unexpectedly, this shameless woman had no shame and frankly told everything. Yeonja also said that if Do-ra didn't let her go with her, she would definitely not agree to Do-ran's marriage. When Dae-ryuk returned home, Eun-young quickly told him that Do-ran was adopted, but he had known for a long time. Moreover, this wasn't a big deal. At first, Dae-ryuk chose Do-ran not because of her family background, but because of who she was. Do-ran calmly returned home and promised Yeonja that even after marriage, she would continue to support her family. Do-ran really liked Dae-ryuk and wanted to marry him. Do-ran hoped that Jang-ya wouldn't hinder her anymore. Even if Do-ran got married, she would absolutely not forget Mi-ran and Yeonja. Jang-ya cried and pretended to be heartbroken, but deep down she really liked it. The next day, Geum-byung, hiding from the family, went alone to meet Do-ran's adoptive mother. Geum-byung gave 300 million won and asked Yeonja to guarantee that after Do-ran got married, she would not ask for money or cause trouble for Do-ran anymore. With the money, Yeonja immediately agreed, but Geum-byung was still not very reassured, so she asked Yeonja to write a commitment. Receiving the money, Yeonja was extremely excited. That night, Yeonja told Mi-ran to quit her part-time job and go to school properly. Mi-ran must also find a rich husband like Do-ran. Eun-young, although reluctant, was still forced by the whole family. Jin-guk and Geum-byung both started preparing for Dae-ryuk and Do-ran's wedding. Soo-il saw Dae-ryuk and Do-ran being intimate, and his long-standing worries were resolved. Do-ran sent a wedding invitation to her friend, Yoo-jin. Yoo-jin's grandmother cried again. Do-ran and Yoo-jin were both surprised by her reaction. Do-ran did not know that Soo-rom was the landlord of her biological parents 28 years ago. It was Soo-rom who gave Do-ran to Dong-chul. Soo-rom also happened to meet Yeonja at the market not long ago, and Soo-rom just found out that Do-ran was the child she gave away years ago. Soo-rom sympathized with Do-ran's situation and sincerely blessed her. Do-ran and Dae-ryuk finally got married. The two walked down the aisle with everyone's blessings. Carrying the desire for happiness, they slowly walked up to the stage. From being enemies at first, to getting to know each other, and then falling in love. Fate is truly miraculous. At this time, Soo-rom saw someone in the audience. She glanced at him and recognized him as Do-ran's biological father. She wondered why he appeared here and immediately stood up to chase after him. Do-ran and Dae-ryuk went on a sweet honeymoon. They did not know that a big incident was about to happen. Eun-young saw evidence that Geum-byung paid money to Yeonja. Eun-young was extremely angry and called the two of them back and threw the commitment paper that Yeonja wrote at Do-ran's face and continuously insulted her. Do-ran listened to the scolding without knowing what she had done wrong. Yeonja spent the money lavishly as soon as she received it. She bought all sorts of things and brought them home. She even planned to move to a bigger house. Do-ran held the commitment paper to make Yeonja pay back the money, but how could this greedy woman accept it? In her anger, Do-ran ended her mother-daughter relationship with Yeonja. Do-ran was was so tired of having a mother like this. Going out, Duran told Daryuk everything. Seeing his wife like that, Daryuk hugged her and comforted her. When she got home, Doran apologized to Eunyoung for what her adoptive mother had done. Gumbyung comforted Doran that she didn't need to apologize because it wasn't her fault. Gumbyung asked everyone not to mention this again. The next day, Hong-sil prepared to visit Jungbyung. Her younger sister Hongju also wanted to come along, but her purpose was not to visit. Hongju only said a few words and then found an excuse to leave. After wandering around the yard for a while, she went to Soo-il's room. It turned out that not long before, she had met Soo-il on the street and fell in love with him at first sight. She had confessed her love many times, but Soo-il had always refused. After knowing that Soo-il was the driver of the Daya family, Hongju followed Hong-sil all the way to this. Soo-il was extremely nervous when a man and a woman were in the room, so he quickly told her to come out and say what happened. Hongju was not shy at all and asked Soo-il directly why he had refused her. If he felt it was because of the difference in status, she could open a car company for him so he could be his own boss. At this time, someone knocked on the door. Hongju wanted to hide, but Soo-il said that it was not necessary. The maid Miss Jo walked in and saw two people who had nothing to do with each other being together and was very curious. Soo-il had to explain that they were friends who volunteered at the church. Miss Jo and Hongju came out of the room and found Jungbyung having another bout of amnesia. Gumbyung chased after Eunyoung and Hong-sil, hitting and scolding them, but when she saw Hongju, Gumbyung thought Hongju was her childhood friend, so Gumbyung pulled Hongju along with her to reminisce about their childhood. They sang and danced in the room. They made a mess of the house all afternoon. It wasn't until Jin-guk came home that it ended. When leaving, Gumbyung told Soo-il to take Hongju home. This made Hongju extremely happy. Halfway there, Hongju said she felt hot and wanted to get out of the car and walk. Hongju pretended to be drunk and couldn't stand still, so she had to hold Soo-il's arm. He couldn't help but laugh at this mentally unstable woman. Duran brought a honeymoon gift to Yujin, but heard Yujin talk about Soo-rom's unusual things. Yujin clearly never told Soo-rom that Doran was adopted, but recently Soo-rom kept mentioning Doran's biological father. Duran realized something was wrong. She guessed that Soo-rom must know something, so Doran went to see Soo-rom privately and asked if you knew about my biological father. Soo-rom seemed a little panicked and lied that she wasn't sober and had been talking nonsense recently. Duran shouldn't care, because Soo-rom and Soo-il had met by chance at the market before, and Soo-il said he didn't want his daughter to know, and Soo-rom also promised to keep it a secret, so she didn't tell Doran the truth. That night, Soo-il sat looking at his daughter's photos. Because of his not-so-good past, he decided he would never tell the truth. When he put away the photo album, he accidentally dropped a photo. The next day, Miss Jo brought fruit to Soo-il and discovered a childhood photo of Doran on the floor. Miss Jo asked Soo-il if this was a photo of his daughter. Soo-il grabbed the photo and appeared extremely agitated and shouted loudly. Miss Jo had no choice but to leave. Very quickly after that, the whole family knew that Soo-il had a daughter. Gumbyung was also very curious and asked Soo-il about his daughter. Soo-il didn't know how to answer, so he just said that he didn't raise a daughter. Seeing Soo-il's dilemma, Gum also apologized for asking so many questions. On the other side, Doran received a call from Soo-rom telling her to come to the hospital immediately. Soo-rom was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Soo-rom felt that she did not have much longer to live. Not wanting Doran to be fooled again, Soo-rom decided to tell Doran that your biological father was right next to you. But Soo-rom did not know specifically where. She only knew that he appeared at the wedding. Doran asked Soo-rom if you knew my father's name. Soo-rom said she didn't know, but it seemed like his last name was Kim. Soo-rom also remembered that person's face clearly. Duran asked if Soo-rom would recognize him if she saw the photo. Soo-rom confirmed, so Duran immediately went home to get the wedding album for her to identify. Soo-rom immediately recognized Soo-il as Doran's father. Duran didn't understand why she had been with Soo-il for so long, but he didn't say anything. Soo-rom comforted Doran that her father must have his own troubles. Soo-rom told Doran not to ask or he would disappear without a trace. To clarify the truth, Doran went to Soo-il's room and stole a toothbrush. After a DNA test, the results confirmed that Soo-il was her biological father. Because of Soo-rom's warning, Doran didn't rush to tell the truth she already knew. So Ran tried to ask Soo-il about his daughter, but he said it was his fault. He wasn't qualified to be a father. After Doran returned home, Miss Jo gave Doran a hair tie and asked if it was hers. Doran said she didn't know when she dropped it, but Soo-il picked it up in his room. That meant Doran had come to his room. Soo-il thought about the missing toothbrush and Doran's unusual reaction today. He suspected that she recognized him, and the only person who knew about it was Soo-rom. Then the grandmother of the friend that Doran met was Soo-rom. So Soo-il followed Doran to the hospital, and sure enough, it was Soo-rom. After Doran left, Soo-il went to the hospital room and grabbed Soo-rom. He clearly told her not to say anything, but Soo-rom said that tomorrow she had to have surgery to remove a stomach tumor. If she died died during the surgery, she was afraid she would regret it, so she told Do-ran. Soo-il was in unbearable pain because Do-ran knew that his existence would only make her unhappy. Because Do-ran knew the truth, he couldn't be with her anymore. He told Soo-ram not to tell Do-ran when Do-ran asked. After returning, Soo-il immediately packed his bags. He left a resignation letter and hurriedly left. Do-ran plugged her phone into the charger and saw 10 missed calls from Soo-ram. Do-ran called back and found out that Soo-il already knew and was about to leave her. Soo-ram told Do-ran to stop her father. Do-ran hurried to Soo-il's room. Sure enough, the room was empty. When Do-ran chased after him, she luckily still saw Soo-il's figure at the intersection. In order to hold on to her biological father, Do-ran kept calling him, but Soo-il was still determined to leave. Do-ran chased after him and called out for her father. At this moment, Soo-il could no longer control his emotions. They hugged each other and cried on the side of the road. Do-ran cried and begged him not to leave. No matter what reason he had for not taking care of her before, it didn't matter, because now she had a father. Do-ran made Soo-il promise not to leave suddenly again, and that their home would be the same as before. As long as they knew each other was safe, that was enough. Do-ran discovered that the driver hired by her husband's family was her biological father. On the surface, they were the employer and the employee, but when no one was around, Do-ran secretly called Soo-il father. That night, Do-ran took advantage of Daryok's deep sleep to secretly text Soo-il. She asked him to go to the supermarket together to buy things. When she saw that no one was at the door, Do-ran innocently called Soo-il father, but Jim-byung, who had just walked out, heard her. Fortunately, Jim-byung was suffering from amnesia, so their relationship was not discovered. Hearing that they were going to the supermarket, Jim-byung was interested and wanted to go with them. Do-ran had no choice but to take Jim-byung along. Yoon-yeon wanted to make things difficult for Do-ran. Yoon-yeon forced Do-ran to wrap 400 dumplings tomorrow, but Do-ran had a meeting tomorrow, so she decided to work overtime tonight to wrap the dumplings. Jim-byung knew about it and wanted to help. When they got home, the three of them started wrapping the dumplings. Halfway through, Miss Jo also helped. Miss Jo accidentally said that Eun-young was deliberately making things difficult for Do-ran. Do-ran accidentally burned her hand. Gum-byung made a scene and the whole family came running. Eun-young told Jin-guk about Eun-young's matter. Jin-guk warned Gum-byung to treat Do-ran well, but she didn't care. To comfort Do-ran, Jin-guk generously gave her a car. This made Daya jealous and determined not to let Do-ran have peace, so Daya always kept an eye on Do-ran, wanting to find her mistake. Today, Daya finally caught Do-ran sneaking out with something. When Daya chased after her, Do-ran was nowhere to be seen. Daya suspected that Do-ran went to Soo-il's room, so she knocked on his door but found it empty. But Daya saw the orange that Do-ran brought out and placed it on Soo-il's desk. There was definitely a problem, but before Daya could react, something happened to the house. Gum-byung discovered that the jewel box was empty and suspected that a thief had broken in. Jin-guk asked everyone to search every corner of the house. At this time, Daya ran to Eun-young and whispered that the most likely thieves in this house were the maid and Do-ran. But the maid's room had been searched, so now there was only Do-ran. Eun-young didn't want to believe it, but Yada reminded that if Yeonja could shamelessly ask for alimony, nothing was impossible. Moreover, Do-ran was the one who went in and out of Gum-byung's room the most. Maybe when Gum-byung fell ill, she gave it to Do-ran. Eun-young thought it made sense, so she and Daya went to Do-ran's room to search for everything. Just then, Do-ran returned. The sound of arguing attracted the attention of the whole family. Jim-byung immediately stood up to protect Do-ran. Daryok also loved his wife, so he suggested calling the police to restore her innocence. After a while of investigation, the police ruled out possibility of an intruder. It was definitely someone in the house. They asked everyone to declare their ID numbers to investigate each person. When it was Soo-il's turn, he was worried and didn't know what to do. Luckily, the gems were found at this time. Soo-il breathed a sigh of relief because if he declared his ID number, his prison record would be discovered. At this time, Miss Jo found all the gems in the refrigerator. It turned out that when Gum-byung fell ill, she mistook the gems for rock sugar and put them in the refrigerator. Jung-byung was very sorry for causing so much trouble for everyone. Jin-guk was extremely disappointed in Eun-young. That night, he took a blanket to study and wanted to separate from her. Only then did Eun-young realize the seriousness of the problem, so Eun-young went to Do-ran's room and sincerely apologized to her. Eun-young was determined to treat Do-ran well in the future. Daya was angry when she saw Do-ran sneaking into Soo-il's room again. This time, Daya took out her phone and took a picture. Daya suspects that Do-ran and Soo-il have an ambiguous relationship. This time, Daya is determined not to let them get away. Home Sil's 32-year-old son has no intention of dating or getting married, so Hong Sil begins to suspect her son's sexuality. Hong Sil recalled the words of Go Rei's son that love has no gender. These words made her even more certain of her guess. Hong Ju was comforting Hong Sil not to think too much. As a result, the next scene shocked both of them. Go Rei was standing close to another man and was pointing very intimately. When she got home, Hong Sil cried, not knowing what to do with Go Rei's future, but she didn't know that he had secretly dated Miran and was dating very sweetly. That day, Hong Sil was preparing to go find a shaman to change Go Rei's fate. She only saw the shaman throw a handful of rice on the table and keep ringing the bell. She muttered that she had seen someone, a woman, but if Go Rei missed this woman, he would never have this blessing again, or would be lonely for the rest of her life. Therefore, even if that woman was ugly, he had to marry her unconditionally. Hearing the shaman's words, Hong Sil felt much more at ease. When she got home, she placed the amulet that the shaman gave her under Go Rei's pillow. The shaman's words were indeed effective. Not long after, Go Rei brought Miran home. He told his family that he would marry Miran. This made Hong Sil extremely happy. She agreed without asking anything. At this time, Daya had just returned to her mother's house. Seeing her mother's unusual reaction, she wondered how she could not ask anything. What if she married someone like Do Ran? They still did not know that Miran was Du Ran's younger sister. Hong Sil saw that Daya talked too much, so she told her to go to her husband's house quickly. Daya had no choice but to leave angrily. Very quickly, the two families arranged a meeting ceremony. Du Ran and Dario, along with Daya's husband and wife, met in the hotel lobby. Coincidentally, they all came to attend the meeting. When they got there, they found out that they were from the same family. Dario was surprised that the person Go Rei planned to marry was Miran. Daya saw that her brother's marriage partner was Do Ran's younger sister and firmly opposed the marriage. Yangjia was shocked and saw that the situation was not good, so she pretended to fate to end it. When she got home, Daya told her mother and brother about all the evils of Yangjia. She didn't expect Go Rei to be determined to marry Miran, or he would be lonely for the rest of his life. Hong Sil believed the shaman. No matter what, Go Rei had to get married. They quickly walked down the aisle as they wished. Hong Sil thought Miran would have to live as a lesbian wife, and she felt very guilty towards Miran. So Hong Sil was determined to love Miran like her own daughter. Today is the day Miran and Go Rei returned from their honeymoon. The whole family has prepared a sumptuous dinner to welcome them. Daya came home but was ignored by Hong Sil. Daya was rejected and left angrily. As soon as she got home, Daya saw Du Ran entering Su Il's room again. So Daya used her phone to record it and immediately showed it to her mother-in-law. Daya falsely accused Do Ran and Su Il of having an ambiguous relationship. Eun-young had just been incited by Daya and almost divorced Jin Gu. She had just apologized to Do Ran and decided to live in harmony. She no longer blindly believed Daya. Eun-young said that Do Ran had said that she would deliver black rice cakes to Su Il, so there was nothing suspicious about it. Eun-young also told Daya to call Do Ran's sister-in-law and to always be polite. This made Daya extremely angry. Both her husband's and her mother's houses were not as they should be, so Daya firmly believed that the relationship between Do Ran and Su Il was not simple. Daya was determined to find more solid evidence. After going through many things, Eun-young also put aside her prejudices and accepted Du Ran. Eun-young took Du Ran shopping and even got their nails done together like sisters. Eun-young truly loved her eldest daughter-in-law. When they got home, Eun-young started telling Daya, who was used to living a comfortable life, to do all sorts of things. Only then did Eun-young realize that Daya was used to being idle and didn't know what to do. She told Daya to go call Gumbyung to eat, but Daya was attacked by hair-pulling grandmother. Eun-young couldn't stand it anymore, so she suggested that Daya and her son Yi-ryuk move out, but Daya was ambitious. When her mother-in-law and grandmother passed away, she would become the mistress of this house, so she absolutely refused to move out. Daya angrily ran back to her mother's house and ordered Miran to make her a bowl of kimchi fried rice. When Hong Sil got home and saw Miran busy in the kitchen, she quickly went to pay attention and ignored Daya. When she found out that Miran was cooking for Daya, Hong Sil told her that if she was hungry, she should cook for herself and eat. Why would she dare to order Miran around? Daya was angry and didn't know why she was being treated like that. Even though Daya cried and explained, Hong Sil still didn't care. Daya angrily left the house. While walking on the street, she accidentally saw Do Ran and Su Il waving their arms at each other in an intimate gesture, so Daya quickly took a picture with her phone. Because of the previous lesson, she didn't dare show the photo to her mother-in-law. She had to find more solid evidence, so she secretly took Du Ran's car key. Sure enough, Daya discovered something that shouldn't have been in the dashcam. Daya couldn't believe that the two of them were really father and daughter. To verify, Daya took their toothbrushes to test. The results showed that they were really father and daughter. Daya brought the report home and met Eun-young. Daya was about to tell Eun-young, but she looked upset. That reminded Daya of the last time Eun-young scolded her. Daya thought that Eun-young definitely definitely wouldn't believe her this time either, so she left. Then Daya went to Jungkook to give him the dashcam recording and the test report. Although Jungkook was also shocked and couldn't believe it, after calming down, he told her to keep it a secret and that he would handle it himself. Jungkook called Do-ran and Soo-il to the company office. He asked them why they hid this relationship and what their real purpose was. Soo-il immediately knelt down and explained to Jungkook. Soo-il told Jungkook everything he had to endure. Soo-il hoped Jungkook would understand. Soo-il had no choice but to do this, but Jungkook was heartbroken because Do-ran had hidden the truth and betrayed his trust in her. For the sake of Dae-ryuk and Gum-byung, Jungkook told Do-ran to act as if nothing had happened and continue to live peacefully. Soo-il had to say goodbye to Gum-byung and quietly leave. After that, Soo-il was not allowed to appear in front of Jungkook's family again. When Do-ran returned home, Dae-ryuk asked her where she went. She had to lie and say that she was going to her mother's house, but he had just arrived at her mother's house and there was no one there. Furthermore, Dae-ryuk discovered that Do-ran's phone was locked. He asked her to unlock it in front of him, but she had promised Jungkook that she would keep it a secret, so she absolutely refused. The relationship between the couple began to become tense. The next day was the day Soo-il left. At first, Soo-il wanted to go say goodbye to Jung-byung, but at that time, she was having a mental breakdown and cried, not letting Soo-il go. But Jungkook still had the heart to force Soo-il to leave. When Jung-byung heard the news, she went on a hunger strike to protest. Do-ran coaxed Jung-byung to eat. Eun-young was overjoyed. Jungkook also looked at Do-ran with affection. Dae-ryuk couldn't bear to look anymore. Unexpectedly, she had such a big weakness and still couldn't chase Do-ran away. But Eun-young didn't know about this yet. If she knew, she wouldn't let it go. So Dae-ryuk asked Eun-young out and told her everything. Eun-young was extremely angry when she found out. Her little sympathy for Do-ran immediately disappeared. Eun-young had already criticized Do-ran's poor background. Now Eun-young suspected even more that Do-ran had an ambition for marrying into this family. Eun-young went crazy and threw Do-ran's luggage outside, wanting to chase her out of the house. Do-ran walked on the street wearing thin clothes and eventually fainted from the cold. Kind passers-by took her to the hospital. Soo-il was heartbroken when he heard the news. He went to Gook's house and knelt down in front of everyone to beg for forgiveness. He cried and said that Do-ran really didn't know anything. It was all his fault. If there was punishment, he would bear it all. Soo-il just hoped they wouldn't chase Do-ran out of the house. Dae-ryuk knew about their relationship, but he was not angry. On the contrary, he was happy that Do-ran found her father. He promised Soo-il that he would always stand by Do-ran's side. So when Do-ran woke up, Dae-ryuk took her home. Gum-byung and Jungkook sympathized with Do-ran. They believed that Do-ran and Soo-il had no bad intentions. Only Eun-young refused to let go. The next day, Eun-young got angry and chased Do-ran out of the house. Jungkook was helpless and let Do-ran take refuge elsewhere. After work, Dae-ryuk also went to Soo-il's house and officially recognized Soo-il as his father-in-law. Soo-il was moved to tears when he heard that. At this time, Gum-byung's house had another episode of amnesia. Gum-byung screamed and demanded to find Do-ran and Soo-il. Helpless, Jungkook had no choice but to take her to Soo-il's house. When he met Soo-il, Jung-byung started to get emotional again. The four happily ate grilled meat. Jung-byung even wanted to feed the grilled meat to Soo-il himself. At night, Jung-byung didn't want to go home and insisted on staying at Soo-il's house. Jungkook had no choice but to agree. He intended to advise his wife to accept Do-ran, but Eun-young was very stubborn. They argued to the point of divorce. Do-ran felt very guilty when she heard that Jungkook and Eun-young were getting a divorce. She didn't want to break up this family, so she agreed to divorce Dae-ryuk. When she heard that Do-ran agreed to divorce Eun-young, her heart softened. It wasn't that Eun-young couldn't forgive Do-ran, it was just that she felt deceived and betrayed. Jungkook also began to advise her. He knew that deep down she was the kindest person. After being persuaded by her husband, she finally compromised. Their family returned to peace as before. Eun-young found Do-ran and asked Do-ra to promise that Do-ra wouldn't hide anything from her anymore. If Eun-young found out anything, she would never forgive Do-ran again. Soo-il bought a truck and sold bread on the street. That day when he brought his goods home, he saw Hongju waiting for him in the cold wind. He didn't know how long she had been waiting. She was shaking as she talked. When he got home, Soo-il cooked Hongju a bowl of hot noodles, which made her very happy. Soo-il drove the truck to take Hongju home. Hongju tried to hug Soo-il and he didn't resist. The two people with two fates sympathized with each other. The next day, a man came to buy bread on the street. He took out a suitcase of money. This man's name was Dong-won, Soo-il's friend in prison. Soo-il had helped Dong-won before, so after he got out of prison, he looked for Soo-il and wanted to repay the favor. Dong-won gave Soo-il money to open his own bakery, but Soo-il refused to accept it. The next day, Dong-won took Soo-il to a store. Dong-won rented the store and forced Soo-il to accept it at all costs. At first, Soo-il naturally did not want to spend other people's money, but under Dong-won's persuasion, he reluctantly agreed. That day, Dong-won and Do-ran met by chance in the store. Do-ran was curious about about the relationship between Dongwon and her father. Dongwon stammered and lied that they were old friends. Afraid of being exposed, Dongwon quickly found an excuse to leave. Hongju also came to the store to help. She made their relationship public with Do-ran. Do-ran also did not object to her father having a new love. Soon after, Hongju and Soo-il had some affectionate gestures. Soo-il's small bakery quickly went into operation. In the evening, he also brought leftover bread to the tunnel to give to the homeless. Among them, a homeless person recognized Soo-il. This person was the creditor that Soo-il had sought out before the incident. When he saw Soo-il, he quickly ran away. He wondered why Soo-il had been sentenced to life in prison and now appeared outside. That day, Do-ran met Dongwon again at the store. She saw Dongwon buying a lot of bread to support her father's business. Do-ran was very grateful and thanked Dongwon. Dongwon told her not to be polite because this was what he should do. Unexpectedly, in the midst of being so happy, Dongwon almost revealed the secret, so he quickly found an excuse to leave. But Do-ran began to have doubts. She wondered if her father had ever been in prison. She consoled herself that it was impossible, but when she cleaned her father's room, she discovered a locked box. Inside were letters that Dong Chol had sent to the prison, but the recipient was Kim Young-hoon. Do-ran did not understand why her father had these letters. That night, Do-ran remembered that Soo-rom had said that her father's last name seemed to be Kim. Could it be Kim Young-hoon? That means her father had been in prison. Do-ran couldn't believe it. She consoled herself that her father was Kang Soo-il. Unexpectedly, the next day, when she was about to go to the bakery, she heard Dongwon calling her father by the name Young-hoon. This made Do-ran confirm that her father was Kim Young-hoon. She didn't know what crime her father had committed. To clarify the truth, Do-ran went to Soo-rom's house. Soo-rom thought Do-ran knew everything, so she told him that Soo-il had killed someone. Soo-rom insisted that Do-ran's father was a good person. There must have been a misunderstanding, but this shock made Do-ran unable to accept it for a moment. How could she believe that her father had killed someone? This news made Do-ran extremely miserable. Even though she believed her father was a good person, it was true that he had killed someone. She also felt that she couldn't face her father anymore. That night, Do-ran had a nightmare. In her dream, she and her father were looked down upon by everyone. When facing Daryok, Do-ran also felt guilty. Do-ran thought that she couldn't be with him anymore. Soo-rom went to Do-ra again and told her about the difficult situation of her biological parents. In the past, Do-ran's mother suddenly had a heart attack. Soo-il didn't even get to eat a full meal. He tried every way to have surgery for his wife. He ran around trying to make money and ended up accidentally killing someone. Do-ran's mother didn't even go to the hospital and died. Soo-il left Do-ran when she was young and went to jail. His mood at that time must have been very miserable. Soo-rom hoped that Do-ran would stay by her father's side, or he would be really lonely. Do-ran knew everything and was determined to protect her father. No matter what happened, she wouldn't let him get hurt again. But what about Daryok? Do-ran didn't know how to face him. Because she was so desperate, she decided to get a divorce. Daryok still didn't understand what was going on. He thought that his mother found out yesterday that he stole 50 million won for his mother-in-law and was angry and wanted them to get a divorce. Daryok told Do-ran not to pay attention to the mother's words, but Do-ran's attitude was very determined. When he got home, he found out that she had packed her things and left. The whole family blamed Eunyoung. They thought that this time she had seriously hurt Do-ran's self-esteem. Daryok finds Do-ran at Soo-il's house. She again emphasizes that he doesn't need to do anything but get a divorce. Soo-il asks Daryok what happened. Daryok thinks Eunyoung knows about him secretly taking 50 million won for his mother-in-law. So Eunyoung made things difficult for Do-ran. Daryok suggested that Do-ran move out so that she would no longer be under Eunyoung's control, but he didn't know the truth, so she firmly refused. Daryok had to carry his suitcase to Soo-il's house to live with Do-ran. Do-ran dragged Daryok's suitcase out. Even though she said she wanted a divorce, he didn't want to let go. He thought that their relationship was fine, so why did they have to make it so serious that they got a divorce? To settle things once and for all, Do-ran had to tell Daryok the truth that she was the daughter of a criminal. Her father had killed someone. Did he still want to live with her? Daryok couldn't accept this truth. He stood there, stunned. Youngja knew that Do-ran was asking for a divorce because she had taken 50 million won from Daryok, so she felt very guilty. Youngja went to Go-rae to confess that she had previously taken 50 million won from Daryok to prepare for Miran's wedding. Now Do-ran wants a divorce because of this, so she wants to borrow 50 million won from him to pay back the Jin-guk family. Go-rae gives Youngja 50 million won, so she brings the money to Jin-guk's house. She deliberately takes small denominations of cash, wraps them into a large bag, and pours it down. As soon as she pours it down, Youngja immediately scolds Eunyoung for being stingy. Just because of 50 million won, she forced Do-ran to divorce. But when Eunyoung hears this, she doesn't understand what this woman is talking about. Eunyoung herself doesn't know why Do-ran wants a divorce. Youngja finds Do-ran and tells her to go home quickly. Youngja has already paid back the money to the Jingo family. Yangjia doesn't want to affect Doran's happy life. If the other party looks down on her, she is willing to cut off all ties with Doran. Indeed, Yangjia is much better than before, but Doran has unspeakable suffering. Su-il is also trying to advise Doran. It was obvious that Doran and Daryok loved each other very much, so why was she so determined to divorce this time? Doran was also very sad inside, but she had nowhere to confide in. Daryok thought about it day and night. He still couldn't believe that a good person like Su-il was a murderer. That night, Daryok looked for Doran again to ask if she made up this reason to divorce him. Unexpectedly, Su-il heard their conversation. Now he knew that the reason his daughter insisted on divorcing was because of him. Feelings of guilt and self-reproach surged in his heart. He thought that if he just disappeared, everything would be fine. So Su-il went to the lakeside to do something stupid. Doran also chased after him. She screamed and called her father's name, begging him not to leave her. Su-il kept apologizing to his daughter. He thought that if he just disappeared, his daughter would live happily. Doran tried her best to stop her father. If her father insisted on doing so, she would go with him. The two of them left this world full of sadness together. Hearing this, Su-il regretted it. He apologized to his daughter and promised that he would not do anything stupid again. On this side, Daryok knew that his father-in-law was a murderer, but he still did not want to divorce Doran. Even though they had arrived at courthouse, Daryok asked Doran to come to a coffee shop and frankly said that he could not divorce her. He admitted that when he first heard about his father-in-law, he was shocked and could not accept it, but when he thought about it calmly, he realized the person he was living with was her, not her father. Moreover, Doran was not at fault at all. People say that a son-in-law is like half a son. What child would abandon their parents because they committed a crime? Daryok told her to think seriously. Doran frankly said that she did not know what to do. Su-il suggested that he would leave so that his daughter could be happy with Daryok. If he really saw that Doran divorced because of him, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. In the end, Doran agreed not to divorce, but she was still determined not to let her father leave. Without her father, she could not be happy. At this time, Gumbyung lost her mind again. She took a taxi to Su-il's house. Jinguk knew that Gumbyung had gone to Su-il's house again. He wanted to take the whole family to Su-il's house to pick her up and pick up Doran at the same time. When everyone arrived, Gumbyung had a fit and pointed at Eun-young, saying she was a bad woman. She was the one who kicked Doran out of the house. Gumbyung wanted to hit Eun-young, but everyone stopped her. Gumbyung insisted on taking Doran home with her, so everyone advised Doran to go home. In the end, Doran stopped hesitating and went back with everyone. That night, the two went to Daryok's yard to thank Doran for agreeing to go home, but Doran was worried about their future. He comforted her not to worry about what had not happened. As long as they did not say anything, no one would know. That day, Gumbyung and Miss Jo went to the bakery to find Su-il. Coincidentally, Hongju also came to the bakery. She asked Doran where Su-il was. When Gumbyung heard Hongju calling Su-il so intimately, she became jealous and wanted to go out and talk to Hongju. But the more they talked, the more they lost control. Gumbyung could not hold it anymore and rushed over and grabbed Hongju's hair. Then the three women started fighting. Finally, Su-il came out to resolve the conflict. He said that they were all good people and very important to him, so he would treat the three of them as friends in the future. But Hongju was sad because Su-il did not make their relationship public. That night, Hongju asked Su-il out and gave him a watch. She frankly said that if she waited for him to propose, her hair will become gray, so she had to take the initiative to propose. But Su-il flatly refused. A person like him did not deserve to be loved. He advised Hongju to find someone else worthy of her. Hongju thought that Su-il was just finding a reason not to like her to refuse, so she sadly left. But that day, her ex-boyfriend who had always been clinging to Hongju came to her again. Her ex-boyfriend warned her to stay away from Su-il because he had a criminal record for murder. Hongju did not want to believe it, but because of what Su-il said, she could not help but find out truth. When asked by Hongju, Su-il admitted it without denying it. She was heartbroken and left. She never expected that a kind and gentle man like Su-il would be charged with murder. Hongju was heartbroken and in despair. She was preparing to leave Korea and went to say goodbye to Su-il. Su-il couldn't bear to let her go. He recalled the first time they met at church and volunteered together. This crazy and lovely woman clung to him little by little. He didn't know when his tears started falling. When he saw Hongju's farewell message, he couldn't help but rush to the airport but couldn't find her anywhere. The next day, because Hongju left, Duran was very worried about her father. Duran sent a message to Tae-pung to ask about her father's situation. Tae-pung said he seemed to be in a good mood. He was baking and singing. This made her very confused. Hongju knew that Su-il used to be a murderer. Too desperate, she decided to leave this heartbreaking country. But the moment before boarding the plane, she changed her mind and dragged her luggage and tried to run back. She went to Su-il's house. She didn't want to worry about Su-il's past. She only knew that the Su-il she knew Hongju was a kind and enthusiastic man. Let the past sink into oblivion. She still wanted to be with him and love him forever. Without Suil, Hongju couldn't live alone. They hugged each other tightly. Hongju no longer avoided each other. Suil no longer backed down. The next morning, Suil made a love breakfast for Hongju. Hongju looked at Suil's busy back and felt extremely happy. Before saying goodbye, they greeted each other like an old married couple. Hongju told Suil to go home early. At home, she also ironed Suil's clothes. That night, she took the initiative to cook a sumptuous dinner, but the soup was too salty to eat, so Suil advised her to ask her sister's permission first. Hongju also agreed to tell her sister tomorrow, but Hong Sil had already arrived at the door. Hong Sil made a fuss at Suil's house and strongly opposed their being together, but Hongju still insisted on marrying Suil. Hong Sil angrily demanded to cut off ties with Hongju. Daya angrily returned home and took her anger out on Do-ran, but Do-ran only knew about their upcoming marriage through Daya's store. Yingyum knows Suil is getting married to Hongju, but is very excited. The reason is that if Suil marries the rich lady Hongju, then in the future, when Suil is said to be in-laws, she won't lose face. It's just that she feels a little sorry for Hong Sil. This way of thinking is also strange. Today, Daya's uncle returned to the country, so the whole family gathered for dinner at the hotel. During the meal, the uncle mentioned Daya's father. Daya asked him about the murder case of her father. It turned out that when Daya's father was murdered, Hong Sil was so sad that she stayed in the hospital for a long time. The uncle took care of the funeral, but he didn't want them to know the details of the case. He comforted Daya that the murderer had been sentenced to life in prison and would have to spend the rest of the life in prison. The dead are dead, the living must continue, but Daya still couldn't contain her curiosity. Daya searched for that year's case online, but the internet only had a picture of the murderer wearing a mask. Daya was extremely scared because that person looked so much like Suil. Yi Ryu comforted her not to watch those things anymore, to let the past be forgotten. Hongju still went home hoping to receive her sister's sincere blessings. Hong Sil was also very worried because she had witnessed Hongju growing up. As the older sister, Hong Sil wanted Hongju to be happy. Hong Sil was afraid that Hongju's life would be ruined by a bad person. Hongju believed that this time she would find happiness. Seeing Hongju's determination, Hong Sil did not stop her anymore. Soon after, they began to prepare for the wedding, but on the way to the airport, Daya's uncle saw Suil on the side of the road. He immediately recognized Suil as the one who killed his younger brother years ago. He wondered why Suil was outside at this time, because he was busy going abroad. He only called Daya and told her to investigate whether that person had been released. The uncle told Daya the name of the murderer and where he was serving his sentence. Daya asked someone to investigate. On the day Hongju and Suil get married, Daya received the investigation results and discovered that the murderer was Suil. She went crazy and ran to the wedding to cause chaos. Daya threw her investigation documents in front of everyone and pointed out that Suil was Kim Young-hoon. The murderer was sentenced to life in prison and now changed his name to Suil to hide it from everyone. Under everyone's suspicious eyes, Suil admitted his real name. Hong Sil was so shocked that she fainted. Hongju also ran away heartbroken. It took her a long time to make up her mind not to pursue Suil's past, but ironically, the person who was killed was her brother-in-law. Hong Sil woke up and couldn't accept Miran. Hong Sil yelled and chased Miran out. Seeing Miran reminded her of Duran's father, but Miran was not at fault. Gorei loved Mira so much that he told her to go home first. He would wait until his mother calmed down and then take Ra home. Jinguk's family was also not peaceful. Eunyoung cried at home. She couldn't believe that the whole family had lived with a murderer. What was even more absurd was that the daughter of the murderer and the daughter of the victim became sisters-in-law. The whole family sighed. Jinguk calmed down and tried to find a way to solve this. He called Do-ran back. Knowing such a relationship, enemies shouldn't live in the same house, so Jinguk told Do-ran to pack up and leave the house. Immediately, Do-ran and Dae-ryo both calmly accepted this fact. Before leaving, she went to Geum-byung's room to say goodbye. Geum-byung turned her back and pretended to sleep. Although she was very reluctant, now was not the right time to hold on. But not long after, Geum-byung got sick and started looking for Do-ran again. Geum-byung scared the new nurses away. Geum-byung's condition also got worse, leaving the whole family helpless. Everyone had to lock her in her room alone. Unable to find Do-ran, Geum-byung had a fit every day. The women in the house were all attacked by her. Seeing his wife's thinning hair, Jinguk made the difficult decision to send his mother to a nursing home and hand her over to someone to take care of her. Before Geum-byung was taken away, Jinguk told everyone not to look back. All the family members were heartbroken, but they had no other choice. Suil disappeared for a while and then returned to the bakery. Life had to go on. He decided to do many good deeds to atone for his sins. Tae-poong did not leave either. He wanted to keep the bakery together with Do-ran and Suil, but every party must end. The people around knew that Suil was a murderer, so they smashed the bakery, even threw eggs, and chased everyone out. Tae-poon was injured by the thrown egg while protecting Do-ran. Do-ran treated his wound. Soo-il knew what happened and did not want to implicate Tae-poon, so he advised Tae-poon to leave, but Tae-poon still insisted on staying. Tae-poon took the initiative to clean up the graffiti at the shop. He wanted to fight side by side with Do-ran. They cleaned everything up. After making the cakes, there was no one in the shop, so they had to set up shop on the side of the road. Although Do-ran was very sad, Tae-poon was always by her side. Geum-byung couldn't find Do-ran and started a hunger strike. Geum-byung was so hungry that she fainted several times. Jin-guk lied to Geum-byung that her younger sister had died. After hearing this, Geum-byung wanted to die even more to reunite with her younger sister in heaven. Jin-guk was helpless and had to call Do-ran. Do-ran was very worried when she heard about the grandmother's situation, so she immediately ran to the nursing home. When Geum-byung met Do-ran, she thought she had gone to heaven. Do-ran quickly explained that she hadn't died and that Geum-byung was still alive. Hearing this, Geum-byung happily started eating. At midnight, Geum-byung sneaked out of the nursing home and took a taxi to Soo-il's house. Jin-guk's family came to pick her up, but she lay on the ground and refused to leave. Do-ran told Geum-byung to stay. Jin-guk felt very embarrassed and kept apologizing to Do-ran and Soo-il. The next day, Jin-guk looked for Do-ran and wanted to hire her to take care of Geum-byung. Do-ran agreed immediately because she and Geum-byung already had deep feelings, but she didn't need any salary. She agreed only because she loved Geum-byung. When Dae-ryul found out, he felt sorry for Do-ran. He asked everyone what they thought of Do-ran. When he didn't need her, they kicked her out of the house, but now that they needed her, they shamelessly bothered her. Dae-ryuk proposed to remarry Do-ran, but was still opposed by Jin-guk and Yin-young. Dae-ryuk didn't give up and went to Do-ran to propose remarriage. He wanted to take her and Do-ran to live abroad, but Do-ran didn't agree. She told him to just think of herself as a hired nurse. Yin-young wanted Dae-ryuk to forget Do-ran soon, so she introduced him to a rich young lady. So, Eun-young held a party at home to entertain Miss So-young. Dae-ya always flattered rich people and acted close to them. So-young. Dae-ryuk was tricked by Eun-young to go home. When he saw So-young, he was very surprised. While they were preparing to eat, Geum-byung rushed out and grabbed So-young and wouldn't let go. Geum-byung scolded So-young for being an evil woman who seduced her younger sister's husband. Dae-ryul couldn't escape being slapped a few times by Geum-byung and scolded him for being promiscuous. In the end, So-young was so scared that she ran away. On the other side, Go-rae and Mi-ran were very affectionate, but Go-rae asked for a divorce. The reason was that his mother did not accept Mi-ran, but in fact his health had problems. He was diagnosed with end-stage cirrhosis. At most, he only had half a year to live. Go-rae tried to hide it from everyone, but Hong-sil still found the medicine box he threw in the trash. Go-rae had no choice but to tell everyone the truth. Hong-sil took the whole family to get tested to save him, but no one was a match, so Hong-sil had no choice but to tell Mi-ran the truth and told her to get tested too. Only then did Mi-ran know why Go-rae wanted to divorce her. Of course, she immediately agreed to get tested, but unfortunately, it was not a match either. Mi-ran sadly looked for Do-ran, but their conversation was overheard by Soo-il, so he secretly went for a test and then found Hong-sil, wanting to donate his liver to Go-rae, but she despised him as a dirty murderer. She did not accept Soo-il's kindness and even insulted him. Hong-sil had no choice but to go everywhere to beg her relatives. Of course, they all refused. Go-rae's health was getting worse. If he did not find a suitable liver source, he would not live much longer. Mi-ran begged Hong-sil to accept Soo-il's liver source. After some hesitation, Hong-sil still went to Soo-il's shop. Finally, she bowed her head and knelt before Soo-il and begged him to save her son. Soo-il did not hesitate and immediately agreed. Hong-sil told Hong-ju and Soo-il to register their marriage so that Soo-il could donate his liver to Go-rae as a family member. Hong-ju was heartbroken. She did not expect her sister to be so selfish. Soo-il also advised Hong-ju to register her marriage with him. At the same time, he comforted her that it would be okay. He reached out and found that neither of them had taken off their wedding rings. Even though they were separated by life, they still had each other in their hearts. The two of them just registered their marriage in such an unfortunate situation. Hong-ju moved to Soo-il's house to take care of him. Soo-il also actively exercised to prepare for donating his liver. The day of the surgery came very quickly. Go-rae received Soo-il's liver transplant and woke up not long after, but Soo-il was not so lucky. He still had not woken up. His vital signs were abnormal and he was taken to the emergency room. Hong-sil heard the news but still sat in the hospital room smiling happily. Hong-ju was very disappointed to see her sister like that. Not only that, Hong-sil also told Hong-ju to avoid going to Soo-il's hospital room every day. Hong-ju was extremely angry when she heard that. She seriously told Hong-sil that she and Soo-il were not in a fake marriage. They were husband and wife. On the way back, Hong-ju met Dae-ya. Hong-ju told Dae-ya to treat Soo-il like an uncle. Hong-ju wanted Dae-ya to visit Soo-il, but Dae-ya did not agree. Even though Soo-il had donated his liver to her brother, he was still the one who killed her father. Go-rae Do-rae's hospital room was crowded with people, but outside Soo-il's room, there was only Do-ran. Dae-ryuk saw Do-ran and painfully put his coat on her. Even though she told him to leave, he still quietly stayed by her side all night long. The next day, Suk-ja appeared in front of the hospital room. He muttered an apology to Soo-il, who was lying on the hospital bed. Dae-ryuk grabbed Suk-ja and asked if he had anything to say to Soo-il, but Suk-ja pulled her hand away from Dae-ryuk and ran away. When Dae-ryuk returned home, he felt very uneasy. He recognized Suk-ja. He had seen Soo-il chasing Suk-ja on the street before. Dae-ryuk chased after him and overheard their conversation. It turned out that Soo-il recognized Suk-ja as the creditor. Suk-ja was the person Soo-il had been looking for before the incident and was also the one who testified against him in court. Because Soo-il had no memory of the murder, he wanted to find Suk-ja to verify it, but Suk-ja still insisted that Soo-il was the murderer. At this point, Dae-ryuk had a rough understanding of the case that year. He felt that there were many suspicious points in the case, so he called his senior to request a reinvestigation of the case. Sure enough, there were many loopholes in the case. The knife used to commit the crime had fingerprints of both Suk-ja and Soo-il, but only Soo-il was considered a suspect. The witness's testimony had many contradictions. The senior said that they had to find new witnesses or find a way to get the old witnesses to change their testimony, otherwise it would be difficult to overturn the case. But at this time Suk-ja had already escaped. Dae-ryuk quickly told Do-ran the news, so he and she went everywhere to find Suk-ja's whereabouts. When they found Suk-ja and asked him about the case that year, he still said Soo-il was the murderer. At this time, Eun-young discovered that Dae-ryuk did not come home overnight. When she arrived at the hospital gate, Eun-young was very angry when she saw Dae-ryuk holding Do-ran in his arms. Eun-young thought that Do-ran took advantage of her innocence to trick Dae-ryuk into treating her well. So the next day, Eun-young went to the hospital room and slapped Do-ran without saying a word. In front of Soo-il, Eun-young insulted Do-ran as the daughter of a murderer, so she should not even dream of entering their house and not bother Dae-ryuk anymore. But not long after, Gum-byung lost her mind again and made a fuss in the whole house. Miss Jo called Do-ran again and wanted her to take care of Gum-byung. Do-ran could not go, so she told Miss Jo to take Gum-byung to the hospital room. Do-ran had to take care of her father and Gum-byung, who had lost her memory. Miss Jo couldn't stand it either. It was so troublesome to have to do all this. But Do-ran never felt bothered. Where could find such a kind daughter-in-law? At this time, Soo-il woke up. Luckily, the surgery went very smoothly. As long as he woke up, there would be no problem. After waking up, Soo-il called Jin-guk and asked him to come to the hospital to pick up Gum-byung himself. Soo-il's tone was firm and angry. It turned out that he could still hear the sounds outside when he was in a coma. He remembered every word and every sentence that Eun-young had come to the hospital room to humiliate Do-ran. Thinking about the humiliation his daughter had suffered, Soo-il's eyes turned red. Jin-guk came to the hospital room. Soo-il asked Jin-guk to take Gum-byung away immediately. If Gum-byung had a bout of dementia in the future, she was not to be pushed onto Do-ran. Everyone wondered why Soo-il was so determined. Soo-il directly said that they could look down on him, but no one had the right to look down on Do-ran. Do-ran and Dae-ryuk got married because of love. Do-ran also took care of Gum-byung wholeheartedly. His daughter had sacrificed so much, but how could they slap and humiliate Do-ran like that? Hearing Soo-il say that, Jin-guk also felt ashamed. Other than apologizing, he could do nothing but take Gum-byung away. On this side, Dae-ryuk decided to approach another witness, a female employee of the loan shark company. After searching everywhere, he knew that the female employee had died 10 years ago, but the female employee and Suk-ja were husband and wife. They also had a son. Not long ago, the son had been in a traffic accident. When Dae-ryuk found them, Suk-ja's son had already died. Looking at the empty memorial hall, he bought the necessary items. He also bought Suk-ja's suit. Not long after, Suk-ja had nothing to worry about anymore. His conscience rose, and he went to the police station to confess. It turned out that at first, Suk-ja was chasing Soo-il with a knife, but accidentally stabbed Dok-jung, who was trying to stop Soo-il. Soo-il had hit his head on the doorframe and passed out. Suk-ja and the female employee had staged a fake scene of Soo-il's murder. The Korean news was full of stories about the wrongful conviction 28 years ago. At this time, Soo-il had already gotten into the car and left. Do-ran chased after her father and called him back. Do-ran told Soo-il about his wrongful conviction. Finally, father and daughter were reunited and no longer had to endure the separation caused by this crime. Seeing her father wrongfully accused, Do-ran was heartbroken, but Soo-il didn't want to blame anyone. If he hadn't tried to snatch the money, things wouldn't have happened like that. Hong-sil knew that Soo-il wasn't the murderer of her husband, so she didn't object to him marrying Hong-ju anymore. The whole family solemnly apologized and thanked Soo-il. Soo-il also bravely ran to Hong-ju. Finally, they could be happy together with everyone's blessings. At this time, they had the result of their love. Hong-ju wanted Soo-il to tell Do-ran that she was pregnant, but Soo-il saw that Do-ran was already 28 years old. Suddenly having having another sibling would make Do-ran very embarrassed, so she didn't dare say anything. Dae-ryuk also came home. He boldly proposed to Do-ran to remarry. The whole family didn't object, except for Eun-young. Eun-young still wanted Dae-ryuk and So-young to be together. Eun-young took the initiative to find Soo-il. Even though Soo-il had cleared his name, there was still a difference in status between the two families. Eun-young told Soo-il that Dae-ryuk was going to date the daughter of LK Group, so Soo-il had to know where he stood. Dae-ryuk still wanted to remarry Do-ran. Soo-il came on behalf of his daughter and drew a clear line with Dae-ryuk. Soo-il saw the love for Do-ran in Tae-poom's eyes. Tae-poom also hid it and honestly expressed his feelings. Soo-il sincerely hoped that his daughter could marry someone like Tae-poom and then live a peaceful life without scandal. Gumbum lost his mind again and grabbed Eun-young's hair. Eun-young couldn't stand the torture and finally agreed to let Dae-ryuk remarry, but love can't be bought just like that. Soo-il officially refused Jin-guk's request for remarriage. Tae-poom had started pursuing Do-ran. Dae-ryuk could only stand by and watch. That day, Dae-ryuk went to the company to meet President Song, but saw Tae-poom instead. It turns out that Tae-poom is Chairman Song's nephew and is also a real rich man. Dae-ryuk sadly turns to alcohol to drown his sorrows. Meanwhile, Tae-poom takes Do-ran out for steak. While eating, Do-ran thinks about the first time Dae-ryuk took her out for steak. It's clear that Do-ran can't forget him either. Eun-young looks at the empty room. Dae-ryuk didn't come home for the night. Eun-young finally realizes her mistake, but it's too late to regret it now. The next morning, Miss Jo went out to take out the trash and saw Dae-ryuk sitting in front of the door, frozen to the point of unconsciousness, so she rushed him to the emergency room. If she had arrived a little later, Dae-ryuk might not have survived. Eun-young looked at her poor son with heartache. She didn't dare think about how she would live without Dae-ryuk, so Eun-young called Do-ran, crying and begging her to come to the hospital to visit Dae-ryuk, but Soo-il still refused. Dae-ryuk was discharged from the hospital and submitted his resignation in frustration. He wanted to leave Korea to travel for a few years to heal. Dae-ya couldn't bear it, so she went to find Do-ran. Dae-ya told Do-ran that Dae-ryuk was leaving and wanted Do-ra to keep him. The reason Dae-ya reconciled with Do-ran was because not long before, Dae-ya had seen Yi-ryuk's lover on the street, but Dae-ya was bullied by her husband's lover. Just as Do-ran was passing by and saw them, she immediately punished Yi-ryuk's lover. From then on, Dae-ya was admired by Do-ran and always called Do-ran her sister-in-law. Do-ran also helped Dae-ya teach Yi-ryuk a lesson that he would never forget, so she turned to support Do-ran. That night, Do-ran and Soo-il couldn't sleep. The next day, Do-ra went on a date with Tae-poom but couldn't concentrate. In the end, she confessed that she couldn't forget Dae-ryuk. Even though she didn't want to, Tae-poom still said it was okay. He knew that his position in her heart was not as good as Dae-ryuk's. Eun-young looked for Do-ran to try to hold on to her one last time. At this time, Soo-il arrived. Eun-young was embarrassed and left, but Do-ran's heart was already with Dae-ryuk. She asked her father to let her go back to the person she loved. Soo-il thought about it all night and decided not to stop her anymore. He let his daughter follow her heart. At the airport, Do-ran hurriedly left for Dae-ryuk. Luckily, it was still in time. One held on, the other stopped. The two happily hugged each other. With Do-ran by Gyeongbyung's side, she no longer grabbed Eun-young's hair. Seeing Dae-ya taking the initiative to do housework, Eun-young also decided to love her more. 2 years later, Soo-il took his 2-year-old son and opened an orphanage. Dae-ya and Mi-ran were also pregnant. The drama ended with a very happy ending. Thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye and see you again.